something about Prabhupada's books that are just very special. For one thing, Prabhupada, he's a Shaktivesh avatar. And he once said that I'm not writing these books, Krishna is writing these books, and therefore he would be found reading his own books. So you don't see that, writers, they don't read their own books. But Prabhupada would read his own books because, Krishna was, he was an instrument, just like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Nimitta matram bhavasavya sachin. You just be an instrument. So Prabhupada was a perfect instrument in the hands of Krishna. And therefore this movement spread all over the world because of his purity. Now in the Srimad Bhagavatam it stated, Shrimvatam sva kata Krishna, punya shravana kirtana, hriyantastava yavajani, vidinoti suvitsatam. That Sri Krishna, the personality of God, who was the super soul, the Paramatma in the hearts of all living entities, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who simply relishes his messages. So just see how kind Krishna is. All we have to do is read Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar Devotion, and relish what we're reading, and Krishna, he'll cleanse the dirt from our heart. So this is the special mercy of Krishna, that we just hear and relish and we get purified. Now sometimes because the mind is such a rascal, we're reading and we fall asleep. I was distributing books one time in Thailand, Bangkok, Thailand. And there was a big festival, and I approached one Indian man and offered the Bhagavad Gita to him. And he said, I'd like to read it, but I always fall asleep when I read it. So I said, well, stand up. Just stand up and read it. You're not going to fall asleep standing up. He said, all right, yeah, good point. All right, I'll take a Bhagavad Gita from you. So sometimes we also might find that we're a little tired because the mind doesn't want to hear about Krishna. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that the mind is a non-devotee. So non-devotees don't like to hear about Krishna. So therefore, sometimes we get a little distracted because the mind is not so interested in Krishna. So we're trying to turn the mind into a devotee. Not easy. Actually, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he had a very nice way of focusing the mind on the Hare Krishna mantra. Same as we all know, when you're chanting your japa, it's the mind goes here, the mind goes there, what to do. So what he would do, and what I've been doing for many, many years, and has been helping me quite a bit with my japa, and also with reading. When you're chanting japa, and you find that you've become inattentive, then stop and back up on your beads, maybe 1 or 2 beads, and then go forward. So this gives some inspiration to chant more attentively. Because now remember, the mind is non-devotee. It doesn't want to hear the holy name. It doesn't want to read. So now you got to kind of preach to the mind. I know you don't want to hear the holy name. You don't want to read. But this is the new program. If you're not attentive, then we're going to chant more. We're going to read more. We're going to go back to what we were reading when you were inattentive. We're going to read it again. So this kind of, you got to kind of chastise the mind. It's like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, you got to beat the mind 100 times in the morning with a shoe, and 100 times in the evening with a broomstick. In the early days, devotees would hear things that Prabhupada said, and they would take it very literally. So some devotees were doing, I think it was in San Francisco, they would go down to the shoe room and they would get somebody else's shoe, and 100 times they would hit their head with somebody else's shoe. And then Prabhupada heard about that and said, no. You beat your mind with your intelligence, not with someone else's shoe. So they stopped doing that. But some of the devotees, they kind of lamented that they weren't doing that anymore. They kind of liked getting the mercy of the other devotees. So by reading Prabhupada's books, we're beating the mind. We're nurturing our intelligence. So we have to hear our japa very nicely. We have to read Prabhupada's books very nicely. Then we'll be inspired to distribute the books. So one may ask, well, how should we hear? Prabhupada says in one purport in the first canto that one cannot hear with rapt attention if one is not pure in mind. One cannot be pure in mind if one is not pure in action. One cannot be pure in action if one is not pure in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But if one can hear with rapt attention, one can see Krishna on every page of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's very interesting that that in order to hear with rapt attention, we have to be pure in mind. But to be pure in mind, we have to be pure in action. To be pure in action, we have to be pure in eating, sleeping, mating, defending. It's very interesting. So we have to eat. It's a devotional activity. It's like Prabhupada, he would always eat by himself. It was a devotional activity for Prabhupada. It was devotional service. Even there was one devotee, one servant of Prabhupada, who he wanted to be in the room when Prabhupada was eating. So he went and he set Prabhupada's plate on his table, and then he went to the door, but he just knelt down and wanted to be there. And Prabhupada looked at him and said, yes. And then he understood. He paid obeisances and he left. So Prabhupada it was a very devotional service for Prabhupada to honor prasadam. So eating. Sleeping. We sleep to rejuvenate our body. When Prabhupada would go to take rest, he would tell the servant, now I'm going to waste time. Now, how many of us think like that just before we take rest? Prabhupada didn't like to sleep. He thought it was wasting time. So eating, sleeping, mating. Mating is for procreation, only for procreation. And to raise a Krishna conscious child. And defense. Our protection is that we take shelter of Krishna. Krishna protects. So if we take shelter in this way, then we can hear with rapt attention. There's one example I'd like to give. That imagine there's a fire in a building, and there's some people on the third floor that are shouting for help. Help, help, the fire. So they're screaming for help. And then the firemen come. And with their horns, they're saying, all right, this is what to do. So can you imagine how attentive they are in hearing what the firemen have to say? Because it's a matter of life and death. So they're very, like elephant ears, hearing what these firemen are going to say, because they can save their life. So we should hear like that, because it's a matter of life and death. If we hear attentively, we can get out of this whole cycle of birth and death, go back to the spiritual world. If we hear attentively, we'll be enthusiastic to give this message to others. Yeah. So these two things are very important. We want to go back to Godhead, Prabhupada so many times he would say, but we also want to help others back to Godhead. We're not interested in just ourselves going back to Godhead. Like as Prahlad Maharaj said, that many yogis, they go to the Himalayas and they meditate. But I'm not just interested in myself. I want to bring others back to the spiritual world as well. So this is the compassion of a devotee. He's para dukkha dukhi. He sees others suffering, and it gives some pain. So we should want to help others on this journey, this wonderful journey back to Godhead. There's one in this. I gave this example of the person in the building, of the persons in the building crying for help. The interesting thing happened actually in Australia, in Melbourne, Australia. There was a Rath Yatra just getting ready to start, and maybe in a few days. So they're preparing everything for Rath Yatra, and there was a fire right next to the building there where the devotees were staying, and there was 3 girls screaming out the window, "Help! Help! There's fire!" It's a scream. So one devotee, she told the other devotees, grab the tarp. We had the tarp for the Rath Yatra to cover the cart. She told 10 men, grab the cart, pull it tight, and tell her to jump. So they did that. About 10 strong men, they're holding the tarp, and they tell her, jump. But they were scared. So it was like, I think it's like 3 stories. It was like, so they were a little, I don't know which is better, the fire or the jump. Yeah? So they were a little hesitant. But finally, one of them jumped, and it was she landed safely, and I believe the other 2 also jumped, and everybody was saved. So then it became big news actually in Melbourne, and even went around the country in the newspapers. And Prabhupada, they sent it to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was so happy. He said, I want to get many clips of this, and he wanted to show them to guests how the devotees are helping people, not only in giving them Krishna consciousness, but in helping in so many ways. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So to preach Krishna consciousness, we have to be prepared. And being prepared means we have to have very good sadhana. Prabhupada, he told Yamuna, the best time to chant your japa is before Mangalarti, very early. So, of course, for many people, it's not possible. But when I heard that, I mean, I by Krishna's mercy, when I hear Prabhupada give an instruction, I really try to follow it. So I was already waking up at 2:30, so I thought, well, if I just wake up a half hour early, I could do that. So I've been doing this for years. I chant my japa before Mangalarti. And it's so ecstatic, because then after Mangalarti, you read Bhagavad Gita, read Srimad Bhagavatam, and then by the time I get out on book distribution, I'm all hyped up for distributing books. So yeah, this sadhana is so important. Just like imagine there's a battle, not like the battles they have now where they're using guns, but back in the old days where kshatriyas would come out and have their weapons, and they'd have their shields, and they'd armor and the whole. So imagine the soldiers are all out there and they're getting ready for battle, and one of the guys goes out there and he's only wearing a gamsha. What hope would there be for him, lasting very long at all? You gotta be prepared. There's a battle. So book distribution means it's a battle. It's a war. Probably it's a war against Maya. He wrote a letter to the devotees, I think in Los Angeles. Let me see if I can. It's usually something I remember very easily, but it's not. Krishna is the source of all remembrance and forgetfulness. He says, our temples are not places for eating and sleeping, but they are bases from where we send out our soldiers to fight against Maya. To fight against Maya means to drop hundreds and millions of books into the laps of the conditioned souls, just as during wartime, the bombs are falling from the sky like anything. So this is the mood of Srila Prabhupada. He was a real warrior, and he wanted to fight against Maya and help so many conditioned souls out of this fire of material existence. So this is the kindness of Srila Prabhupada. He taught us how to be prepared. He was so Krishna conscious himself. So we should hear very attentively. So we don't only want to read, we want to help others also read these books, because this will help. This is Krishna Katha. To hear about Krishna is Krishna Katha. And there's also so much Gramya Katha. Practically speaking, there's unlimited Gramya Katha going around this planet. So Prabhupada said, we want to replace all the books with Krishna conscious literature. This was his desire. And he wanted a Krishna conscious literature in every home on the planet, so that people get an opportunity to hear about Krishna. There's so much distraction now throughout the world because of all these devices people have, and there's TV and there's movies, and there's just, it's just, we've been bombarded with weapons of mass distraction. So, and even ourselves, we have these devices, and they're quite dangerous. If you push the wrong button, you can go way off in Maya. So we also have to be very careful with devices that we're using, computers and phones and iPads and all these things. So much Maya is right in there. So we have to be very careful. And therefore, in the Uddhava Gita, Krishna, he told Uddhava, Prapanam Paimami Sabita Mrityu Gaharnava. Krishna told Uddhava, this is how you should pray to me in the form of the deity. My dear Lord Krishna, please protect me, who am trying to surrender unto you. I'm very fearful of this material existence, standing as I am in the mouth of death. So this is how Krishna, the deity, told us how to pray to him, the deity. Please protect me, who am trying to surrender unto you. I'm very fearful of this material existence, standing as I am in the mouth of death. So we should have a fear of Maya. Prabhupada said, my disciples, they have two problems. They don't enough of fear Maya, and they like to change things. These are the two faults of my disciples, he said. So we should have a great fear of Maya. And to show that we have a healthy fear of Maya, we should hear very attentively, and whenever we get time. Prabhupada said, if you have time, chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare, and read his books. We do these two things, and we'll be very prepared to go out and battle against Maya. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I think it's his appearance day over there in India. It's for us over here, it's tomorrow. So he said the only lack in society is Krishna consciousness. This is the only lack. This is what is most needed throughout the world. People are absorbed in illusion, thinking they're their bodies and to satisfy the senses, the goal of life. Completely an illusion. Just like ourselves also. We were also in the body conception of life and thinking the goal of life is to satisfy our mind and senses. But no, we're not the body, we're not the mind, we're not the senses. We're the soul within. And when one engages in devotional service, one experiences the inner happiness of Krishna consciousness. Not this ephemeral, this temporary happiness that people are experiencing around the world. Just comes and goes, and so much suffering in between. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was such a great acharya. When he first met Srila Prabhupada, such an amazing meeting. He said to Prabhupada, Abhayacharan at the time, "You're an intelligent young man." Actually, there's two. "You're an intelligent young man. You should preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the English-speaking world." And Prabhupada said, "Well, who's going to hear our message? We're a dependent country. Who would listen to us?" And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not dependent on some political adjustments. So they spoke for 2 hours. And when Prabhupada left, he was so happy. He'd never been defeated before. He was very intelligent. But he was so happy. He didn't want to go at first because he had seen so many swamis. And he wasn't impressed. He was actually quite disappointed. Someone, his friend, Narendra, I think his name was, said, "Come and see this Swami. He's amazing." "No, I've seen so many of them." So he practically had to drag Prabhupada. And then after Prabhupada had met him, Narendra said, "So, what do you think?" He said, "Oh, the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in very good hands. So certainly this is the truth." And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he put the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the hands of Srila Prabhupada and did so much for the pleasure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was so much into book distribution. They even got this big temple, Bagh Bazaar. And it's a beautiful temple. I think just one of his disciples donated for this temple. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was a little disappointed because many of his disciples, they were just fighting over who's going to get what room. So eventually he said, "Better sell the marble and print books." When I heard that, I was like, wow, that's selfless. Because before they just had this little place, and now they have this big temple. Marble all over. Just sell the marble, print books. I went to that temple, Bagh Bazaar, maybe about 15 years ago, and it was just bringing back memories. I was walking on the marble, that he said, "Sell the marble, print books." So, yes, this is the mood of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He wanted everybody to hear about Krishna. And he told Srila Prabhupada, I think it was at Radhakund, "If you get money, print books." So he put this desire in the heart of Srila Prabhupada. Oh, my guru is very fond of books. So Prabhupada, when he went to America, he of course he didn't have anything. He had 600 books. He had 200 sets of the first canto, 3 volumes, and he would distribute them on consignment to people. Yeah, he would go there. He would put them in stores And he would go there and check, and people were buying them. And that's how he survived in the beginning. And then, of course, it gradually picked up. And but what's very interesting is the only temple in the West that Prabhupada opened was New York City. And from New York City, he was making devotees. And he would send them off, just like Mukunda. When Mukunda left New York, he told Prabhupada, I'm thinking I'm going to go to India. And Prabhupada said, well, because he was going to go through San Francisco. So Prabhupada said, well, when you're in San Francisco, maybe you could try to start a center. And he just said it nonchalantly, like not a important thing, not a lot of pressure or anything, just nonchalantly. Well, when you're in San Francisco, maybe you could start a center. So when he went to the West Coast, he went and saw his old friend Sam, became Syamasundar, and Malati, who was Malaine before. And they were surprised that they had stopped taking drugs and they were married now. Back then, the youth never got married. They were against marriage and taking drugs and doing all kinds of nonsense. And Mukunda said, well, why don't we start a temple for my guru in San Francisco? And they said, all right. So they started the center. And after a few months, they wrote Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, there's so many people here that are interested in Krishna consciousness. You should come. So they sent him a ticket. And he flew over. He had never been in a plane before. He said the house looked like little teeny matchboxes. When he got to the airport, before they even opened the doors, he could hear the chanting. There was 50 people chanting Hare Krishna. And then they opened the doors and loud chanting of Hare Krishna. Can you imagine how pleased Prabhupada must have been? He had not even stepped a foot into San Francisco, and there's 50 people loudly chanting Hare Krishna. And then when he went into the airport, everybody's giving him gifts. So Prabhupada was just, you can imagine, he was so happy. And from there on, he was just sending people all over the world, sent them to Australia, sent them to Africa, sent them to Europe. It's all over. It's amazing. And Prabhupada says in one purport, the pure devotee does not have a material body because of his being surcharged with the current of Krishna's identical interests. So this is Srila Prabhupada. He was completely absorbed in giving Krishna. He had this, he was surcharged with this. And whoever he touched, they would get this charge of spiritual energy. Just like if you have an electric wire. If you touch an electric wire, a hot electric wire, you get electrocuted. And someone touches you, he gets electrocuted. Someone touches him, he gets electrocuted. So it goes on like that, right? I don't know. I guess it depends on how much voltage is in the wire. But Prabhupada was filled. He was surcharged with spiritual energy, and people would come in contact with him, and they would become surcharged with spiritual energy. And they can so surcharged that they can go to another country. They go to Australia and Germany and Africa. And this is how the movement spread all over the world. Prabhupada would send people. It's like when Prabhupada, after like 71, he emphasized book distribution. But in 1967, he emphasized to the devotees, go out, open a center here, open a center, go to Japan, go here, go there, go. He just sent people all over the world. And that's how it started. So Prabhupada, wherever he would go, from that time, from San Francisco, wherever he would go, there would be devotees there. Big kirtan, in the airports, wherever he would go, because he sent this message all over. And it's still happening. In Prabhupada's books, people can get that energy, that spiritual energy. They can get surcharged because Prabhupada's message is in his books. And the Vani is more important than the Vapu. So someone could, just like I read the Bhagavad Gita 44 years ago, and I just thought, this is it. This is the absolute truth. Where do I go? What do I do? Where's the temple? So I found the temple, and I just wanted to do whatever was the best thing to do. And they told me, well, Prabhupada was most pleased with book distribution. So I said, all right, let's do it. This is what made me, so happy, and I felt obliged. I felt so much gratitude to Prabhupada. I was grateful to what he had done. So we should be grateful to what Prabhupada has done for us. And the best way to show our gratitude is to give these books out, because he said, if you want to please me, distribute books. And if we're not grateful, then we're great fools. We should be grateful, and we should show our gratitude by giving this knowledge out to others as much as possible. And this is good for us, and it's good for them. As Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said that to Srila Prabhupada. It'll be good for you to preach this message. It'll be good for them. And it's just, I'm just amazed. Prabhupada, he managed this movement with what they call it snail mail, letters. Now we have email. We can, and we have Zoom. So many ways that we could get immediate contact. But he was managing the whole society with snail mail. This is amazing. And he knows so many verses. I'm just thinking, how did he do that? Because he was a businessman. He had a family, and he was writing, and he knows so many verses. It's amazing. The verses I've never heard before. He's just such as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was known as a Vaikuntha man. So Prabhupada also, he's such a Vaikuntha man, just absorbed in Krishna, giving Krishna to others. So we should try to also absorb this mood of Srila Prabhupada, giving Krishna to others. It'll be difficult. It'll be an austerity, yeah, but that's good. Austerity is good. My latest realization when I was on book distribution recently, my latest realization is book distribution opens the door to humility. And how important is humility? So important. So important that I read this and I had that realization just a couple of days ago, and I came home and I read this. Prabhupada said to one devotee, he says, quote, one who feels humble and meek has the door to the spiritual world opened for him. So humility is so important. When we go out on book distribution, we get rejection. And sometimes it's hard for the false ego. But it's great. It's fantastic, because this helps us to develop humility. It's good. And therefore, when someone says no to me, I say, thank you. Thank you so much. Because we need that. That helps us to develop humility. All over the world, I travel, and I'm the minister of book distribution. I get so much respect, but then I go out on book distribution. No, not interested. Get a job. Don't bother me. And this is so good. This checks the pride and helps us to develop this very important humility. And Narada Muni, he says in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Yayavate hiyadanyam maitra cha tayam etitam. He said one should develop. He says, an intelligent person should develop humility. He says utter humility with his words, with his mind, and his action. And anything that gets in the way of that should be rejected. And anything that helps us to develop this humility, we should accept that. Because Krishna is so pleased with humility. Just like when Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they first met Lord Chaitanya, and they were expressing their humility. And Lord Chaitanya said, you're melting my heart with your humility. And so humility is so important. And we get that humility by going out and giving this knowledge to others. So that's good for us. And it's good for them. Some people will get books. Some people won't. Some people will. The people that don't get books, we get rejection from them. That's okay. We should appreciate that we're getting an opportunity to develop tolerance. If we just hang around the temple, what do you have to tolerate at the temple? Not much, right? Devotees are nice, yeah. But you go out on book distribution, you got to be tolerant. You got to be humble. So we're being trained. It's training for developing this humility. Just like weightlifters, they go to the gym and they they lift weights to become strong. So we go out on book distribution. It's like a gym where we're learning how to become strong servants of Krishna. We're learning how to develop tolerance, humility, compassion. So it's a way to grow in our Krishna consciousness, in our spiritual life. And there's a verse I wanted to say, and maybe if there's some questions. A very nice verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Neha yat karma dharmaya, nirvairagya. Neha yat karma dharma. Anyway, I'll just give you the English. If one's dharma does not bring one to renunciation, if one's work does not bring one to dharma, excuse me, I'm a little rusty on this verse. If one's work does not bring one to dharma, if one's dharma does not bring one to renunciation, and if one's renunciation does not bring one to devotional service, one is considered to be dead, although breathing. So what we have around the world is we have a lot of people that are apparently alive, but they're actually dead. It's a land of the living dead. They appear to be alive, but they're dead. So by this book distribution, we're helping people come alive again by this hearing about Krishna. So, on that note, is there any question or comment? I think this goes till 8 o'clock, right? I mean, till 8 o'clock my time. 9:30 your time, right?
Yes, Prabhuji, it goes till 9:30, but we have a lot of time today. We can, if you are okay, we can go on a little bit extra too. But there are some questions.
Okay.
Oh,
wait 1 second, Prabhu. Yes? I'm on a Zoom right now. Okay, you can just put it. Oh, no, I have one. Thank you.
Need more?
No, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Prabhu.
question. You finished 16 rounds before Mangalarti and you feel good about it. How do you engage yourself after Mangalarti till Guru Puja?
Yeah, I read Bhagavad Gita. I read Srimad Bhagavatam. Do a little yoga also. Yeah, remember, we have to take care of the body too. So I do some yoga. I go on. One day I do yoga. One day I walk. Like Prabhupada said, walking and massage was keeping him alive. So I do like that. It's fantastic. Highly recommend it if you can do it. If you can do it, it's fantastic. It's a great program. Best program I've ever been on.
Next, very nectarian lecture. You are so absorbed following the Prabhupada's instructions. Loved marble example of the Bagh Bazaar when you went to Bagh Bazaar. When you remembered what His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentioned about marble, sell the marble, write the books. Please guide us on
No, he said sell the marble, distribute the books.
Distribute the books. Okay.
Yeah.
Please guide us on how to be alert in doing sadhana as our mind is practicing devotee. Even if we do sadhana for 23 hours, the 24th hour, Maya can play a trick with the mind, tilted towards sense gratification.
Maya is very tricky. So, as I mentioned, this is the best thing I've ever done for trying to chant good japa. You find that you're inattentive in your japa, stop your japa, back up a beat or two, go forward. This checks the mind. Otherwise, the mind just keeps going. And it just keeps going and going, just goes all over the universe. It's like, therefore, it's known as a rascal, the enemy mind. What is it? Krishna says that one should deliver oneself with the help of the mind, and not what is it? One should deliver oneself with the help of the mind, not degrade oneself. The mind can be the friend of the living entity, and its enemy as well. For when he was conquered the mind is the best friend, and for he has failed to do so, it's the worst enemy. So the mind can be an enemy. So we want it to be the friend. So we have to turn it into a devotee. That's the conclusion. We got to turn the mind into a devotee. Hear very attentively. It'll become a devotee. We have so many nice devotees that have transformed their minds into devotees. So we can also.
Okay, a little interesting question regarding chanting. Prabhuji, we have heard that whatever we chant before Brahma Muhurta doesn't count for the day. Is it true?
Oh my God. Who could possibly say something like that? Not true. Negative. Come on, we all chant our, so many of us chant our japa before. Not all, but a lot of people, a lot of devotees. All my rounds are chanted before Brahma Muhurta. And Prabhupada instructed Yamuna to chant your round before Brahma Muhurta. So I don't know where that came from.
How do you manage to keep your enthusiasm continuously since you are doing book distribution for decades?
Well, somehow or another, by Krishna's mercy, I got some desire to have very good sadhana. Rise early. Everything I do is early. I get up early. I go out on book distribution early. I take rest early. Everything's early for me. Here in America, there's one president. He said, "Early to rise." You probably heard this there also. Early to rise, early to bed, early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy, and wise. They have that in India too. You heard that? Yeah.
That's true.
So taking rest early is very good. Getting up early is good.
So, Prabhuji, one practical problem, which, or not a problem, but a scenario setup which we have here is Bangalore being an IT city and most of the devotees being working. They hit the streets for book distribution around 5:30 or 6 p.m. in the evening, and they do till 9:30 or sometimes even till 10 p.m. And that's how the setup here is. That's how people go to office in the morning, in the evening to go out for book distribution. So at times this early to bed and early to rise becomes a challenge. So,
very difficult.
yeah. And another practical problem which we are facing here is that from the last 3 days, it's raining like cats and dogs. What suggestion do you have for us? We aren't able to go out for book distribution.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, that's difficult. You got to pray to Krishna that Indra stop the rain. Actually, there's examples of devotees, believe it or not, they were they wanted to go on book distribution. It was raining, and they one person, he said, "Indra, stop the rain." And he was so enthusiastic that within a short time the rain stopped. So Prabhupada said sometimes the demigods, they will help us in our service. So that's maybe all the devotees with a combined effort, you pray to Indra to stop the rain. Yes.
Prabhuji, out of your experience of, you have seen the Indian subcontinent also. Out of your experience, do you think in cities like Bangalore, if we can go out in the afternoon or if we go out early in the morning, will we be able to distribute books?
What I find is in the morning, people are more in the mode of goodness. But as you mentioned, most of the devotees are congregation, the ones that are distributing, so they distribute in the evening. But if you can, what I find is the morning is the mode of goodness. Then the afternoon becomes more the passion, and then the evening people, it becomes dark and people more in the mode of ignorance. But of course, that's just a material calculation. If you're transcendental, if you're sincerely trying to give Krishna to others, then people will take books. If we're sincere, you see, just like Prabhupada said, if you If you chant Hare Krishna sincerely, then Krishna will be pleased and he'll send people to listen. Similarly, if we're sincerely trying to distribute books, we'll please Krishna by that sincere desire, and Krishna will send people. I had an experience today on book distribution at Balboa Park where Prabhupada spoke, and people were coming to me, coming to the table and wanting books. Now, generally that doesn't happen, but by Krishna's mercy, I had this desire to distribute a lot of books today, and also something that you might want to do there. Also, what we do here is we distribute these leaflets, and it has VIJAY.com. You know, VIJAY.com has all Prabhupada's books. So if they don't take a book for whatever reason, they don't have money or they're in a hurry or something, I just say, well, here, you can read all the books right here for free. So they walk away, they don't give a donation, but they walk away with all of Prabhupada's books right there. So you might want to have that also, have that facility, so they can, if someone doesn't take a book, they get all of Prabhupada's books right there on the database. And I think Krishna was pleased because I was doing that today, and he sent so many people to take books. So we go out there to please Krishna, and Krishna sends people. Krishna's in control. That's another nice aspect of book distribution. You very, very clearly understand who's in control. We may think we're in control of some. Of course, we're little controllers, but Krishna is the Parameshwara. He's the supreme controller. So when you go on book distribution, you get this realization, and this helps us to develop this humility. Krishna's great, I'm small. And we want everybody to know of the greatness of Krishna.
Another question, Prabhuji. This is, I've been thinking about it from quite some time. India being the land of spirituality, and basically everybody is more or less Krishna consciousness in their blood because they have taken birth in India. So is distributing books easier in India compared to the West, or is it, can it be compared?
I haven't distributed books very much in India, but I distribute a lot of books to Indians here. And yeah, they're very nice. Prabhupada said that he put the pictures in there to attract people. So I show the pictures to people. Today I distributed a Krishna book to a family. They had their children there. And I said, you see, a lot of times the Hindus come here and they forget your culture. So you should read this Krishna book to your children every night. That's what I do. Every night I read Krishna book for decades. So I said, you should read this to your children so they don't forget their culture. And they gave a nice donation, took a Krishna book. So yeah, Hindus they're pious. And if we're sincere, again, it's always sincerity. Krishna will inspire them from within. And therefore it's stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Upachistana manta cha bharta bhokta maheshwar paramat mekti chapyukto dehesmin purushapara. Sometimes I chant this verse like japa. Krishna says, within this body there's another transcendental enjoyer. He's the Lord, he's the supreme proprietor, he's the overseer and permitter. So he's the overseer and permitter. Nothing happens without the sanction of Krishna. Surrender to Krishna, and he will help us to distribute so many books. There's a devotee here, he's actually Indian descent. You probably heard of him, Mahotsaha Prabhu. A few days ago, he did 50 sets, Bhagavatam sets in one day. Unheard of, inconceivable. So how is this possible? He's connected. He's connected. So we have to connect. If we connect with this sadhana, so many amazing things can happen. But we have to be connected. That's yoga, right? Connection. We have to connect with Krishna. And we'll be able to do amazing things that we never thought were possible.
Another question, Prabhuji. When we chant the rounds at initial, when we chant the rounds at times, initial rounds are very good, but towards the end, somehow the mind starts wandering here and there. That time I start chanting more loudly. Is this the correct trick to follow? Please guide.
Yes, Prabhupada, he once said you should chant louder than your mind. There was one instance where when Prabhupada was in Montreal, Jayapataka Swami, this is back in 1967, he was chanting very loudly because he heard that instruction from Prabhupada and his mind was, so he was chanting very loudly. And devotees went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, Jayapataka Swami is chanting so loud, we can't hear our own japa. So Prabhupada called in Jayapataka, Brahmacharya at the time, and he told him, you should go and you chant on the hill. There was a hill nearby. So he went up on the hill, and that's where he chanted his japa very loudly. So we shouldn't chant so loud that it disturbs others' ability to hear their rounds. If you chant out loud, find a hill somewhere. They got Hare Krishna Hill there in Bangalore, right?
Yeah. Prabhuji, as you mentioned, when we get rejection in book distribution, we become humble, but when we distribute, we also feel some pride, how to deal with it.
Yes. Then Krishna, then we start thinking, oh, I'm such a good book distributor now. And then all of a sudden the books don't go out anymore. Krishna, that's such a nice thing about book distribution. Krishna keeps you humble. He'll keep you humble. If you continue distributing books, he'll keep you humble. But also we should think when we're able to distribute books, we have some success, we should understand it's Krishna. Because before we were able to distribute those books, we're praying to Krishna. But then we forget, I was praying to Krishna. No, don't forget, it's Krishna. He's the Parameshwar. Yeah. So we just want to be instruments. When there's success, we should think, I don't deserve this, but Krishna's so kind. He's so kind. This is how we should think.
Yes, Prabhu. So some questions related to book distribution. Questions like when we approach to someone with a Bhagavad Gita, they say they have it. And some questions like how to strike a conversation to convince them to take the Bhagavad Gita. Your thoughts about it, Prabhu?
Well, I tell them, there's hundreds of Bhagavad Gitas translated from Sanskrit into different languages. But this is the Bhagavad Gita as it is. This is the Bhagavad Gita that convinced Westerners and Japanese people and Chinese people all over the world to serve Krishna. So even amongst scholars, they say this is the most authorized. Even I heard recently there was one Swami who was teaching the Bhagavad Gita for 50 years. But then he read Prabhupada's book, Bhagavad Gita, and he told one devotee, I didn't even know Bhagavad Gita until I read the Bhagavad Gita as it is. He said, when I was reading this, I was in tears. He said, your Prabhupada, he was on the battle of Kurukshetra. He was hearing it. He had such respect for Prabhupada after hearing his translation and commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. So say it like that. There's so many, ask them, which one did you read? Because this is the one that convinced people all over the world to serve Krishna.
Yeah, that's very heart-touching. I mean, Prabhupada was there on the Kurukshetra battlefield here.
Yeah.
In fact, this is the same thing which many experienced book distributors also share. They want to distribute the Bhagavad Gita by its own merit. They just glorify the Bhagavad Gita and, like you yourself said, show the photos and talk about its value and how it has helped you. And
Yes.
when we try to talk about that, how it has helped me, then that that feeling gets transplanted into the other person's heart, and that works most of the time.
Yes.
So, any other questions or comments from others who are?
I have one comment.
Yeah.
This world, it's so dark right now. India also, the West is moving into India so quickly. It's actually, it's so sad. So there's a lot of darkness, and when we go out and we distribute books, we're bringing light into people's lives. Yeah. We're like torch bearers, bringing light into darkness. And the book distributors, you're carrying this torch. The Prabhupada's books. When Prabhupada's books get into people's homes, it brings light into their life. They may read or may not read. Prabhupada said if they have a book in their home, it's like having a deity in their home. So we just have to get the books out to the people. Some will benefit by reading them, some won't, even if they have it. I'll tell you one story. VIJAY Prabhu. He was talking to one lady and she wasn't interested. She said, I don't have time to read. He said, that's all right. If you just have it in your home, it'll create auspiciousness. It'll create auspiciousness in your home, just to have it in your home. She said, all right. He was so enthusiastic. He said, all right. He gave a donation and took the book. And then this is in the airport, San Francisco airport. So 10 minutes later, VIJAY Prabhu, he's speaking to another person in the airport. And she walks by him and she's holding the book and she's waving the book. She said, it's already working. I just got an upgrade to first class. He said, all right, you see, I told you. So just to have a book in people's home is auspicious. What to speak if they read it. So I hope you have all success in this marathon and you double what you did last year. Prabhupada always wanted that, double it. So yes, please. I hope you have very good sadhana and you have great success in distributing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of books in Bangalore. The only hope for the residents of Bangalore. Prabhupada's books.
Prabhuji, one special request. We here at Bangalore have been given a special target, a very unique target. The target is to make Bangalore a Krishna conscious city.
Haribo! That's a nice target.
Target has been quantified also very much. We have been told that there should be 1 lakh devotees in Bangalore chanting Hare Krishna. We have been told that in Bangalore there should be 10 temples and 100 centers. And of course, book distribution is the most important way to do that. So we seek your blessings so that we can do something as much as possible from our side in that direction.
Well, I hope you have all success in those goals. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
We'd love to have you here sometime very soon.
Not this coming year, next year. I'm going to do a little tour of India. I haven't been there. I haven't done, because of COVID-19. There hasn't been many people visiting, probably. But now that's over, so more devotees will be visiting. I'll be there probably in 24.
Please give us some opportunity to serve you and interact with you.
I want to serve all of you.
So,
Thank you.
So our center head Harikshit Prabhu is here. I would request him to thank Vijay Prabhu on our behalf.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandas Pranam. So, like we had come for an yatra to Melkote today. So, I heard your class while during the journey. So it's quite nourishing and inspiring, Prabhuji. Like, definitely we will put all our heart and soul into the book distribution this year. Thanks a lot, Prabhuji, for coming and inspiring us. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. We pray that we keep getting your association, and we request everybody to thank Vijay Prabhu from all our hearts by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram,
Hare
Ram,
Ram, Ram, Hare Hare.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.